welcome on in to another episode of Getting Wild with Terry and Friends NHL preview show. I am so excited to do these shows. 32 teams. We are going to go in deep detail, team by team, for 32 different shows. We'll start here with Anaheim Ducks and move our way forward. I'll start off with talking to the other guys that I have in the show here today, introducing them to people who may not know who they are. Vito, welcome on in. Let people know a little bit about you, and yeah.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, sir. I'm excited to be back in hockey. That's the only thing I watch. I try to watch some tennis during the summer, but it's still individual sport, so it's hard to trust someone there. You never know when someone will lay an egg and will not try. So I like team sports, so hockey is the thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. Ian, let people know a little bit about you.
Yeah, it's nice to know someone was in sports hibernation the last couple months, Vito. It's good to see that because I was not one of those people. Obviously, year-round, things never stop, although the summer was a little bit lighter. But, yeah, it's happy. Good to be on with you, Terry. I'll say this. This is a true show that persistence pays off when it comes to Terry Edelman. I mean, he's asked me a million times to be on some of these shows on his channel here, Getting Wild, his show that he's been doing for a while. And usually something comes up and I say, I can't do it today. Something comes up. And, Terry's like that fly, the mosquito. You swat it away, it keeps coming back. And he kept asking me, and here I am. And in all seriousness, though, Terry, it's good to be on. And I'm looking forward to doing these team preview shows. I mean, it's going to get me ready for the NHL season. It's got me thinking about hockey now, even here in late August. So excited to do some team preview videos, and I'll try to be on as many of them as I can over the next month.
Awesome. Yeah, Vito said the same thing. It's good to actually go and look at these, having all these stats and going through them. It'll really help. And people obviously will be watching this. We're filming today. It's August 23rd. I'm sure that Anaheim is going to make moves between now and the regular season. So there's obviously still lots of time left. I'll bring up the stats sheet. I'll bring it up and down throughout the show. So I basically have a lot of stats here that we'll kind of look at. And I broke it up into 4 sections here. The first one here, additions and subtractions. Basically just looking here at what the team, what Anaheim's done this summer. We'll zoom in a little bit here. So obviously the biggest news obviously was Getzlaf's retirement. So their captain is no longer obviously on the team. Other minor, Dominic Simon, Jacob Larson, Zach Aston Reese, Sam Steele, Suster, Milano, all left as free agents. Brendan Gould as well. Greg Patterin also retired. So I think the biggest, obviously, person there is Getzlaf. I think that's who the team is going to miss the most on that list there. And then you kind of look at who they brought in. They got Ryan Strome, Frank Vetrano, Austin Strand, Chase DeLeo, Glenn Godin, Colton White, Justin Kirkland. So a lot of those names people may not be too familiar with. Some depth pieces there. But John Klingberg, the most recent signing, that's a big addition to the team. So basically Strome, Vetrano, and Klingberg, they're 3 big additions to the team this year. And basically their big subtraction is Getzlaf. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think they've upgraded the team. I think it's fair to say they've upgraded the team. I'm sure some of these guys, Austin Strand, Glenn Godin, Colton White, I'm sure some of them will make the team and will definitely contribute. So that's kind of my thoughts here. We'll go Vito, and then the next section we'll go Ian first. So Vito, what do you think here? Additions and subtractions. You're muted.
First of all, it's my pleasure, Lenny, to have you in the chat. Always happy to see viewers. All right, regarding Getzlaf, obviously will be missed. I mean, he played all his life in one team. Those players are always valuable. The player who spent all his life in one team, like those are the best ones, So of course he will be missed, but he also was old, and maybe of course he was still good, but still he's getting older, and maybe it's time for new guys to step in, and show what they can do. So I like the Vatrano signing, I think, and Strome. I think those are very two good forwards. I mean, Frank Vatrano was very good last season. And yes, Klingberg in the D is okay, but overall, I think still they're a young team with the Zegras. I think the Zegras might actually have worse season than the last one. I don't know. I just think these young guys, when they have one like this star season, when everybody talks about you, usually the next season is worse than the previous. I think, maybe it could be different, but let's see what happens. I don't think they're going to be very competitive, these Ducks. I don't see them being very strong team. That's overall what I can say. I mean, their time is gone. I mean, they have Gibson in the net still, but Gibson also last season was, kind of not the Gibson as he used to be. So for me, I like the new signings. I mean, they did some signings, of course, because they new, and still the coach. I think they still have the same coach, right, from the last year, or did they change the coach?
No, he's still there as of now. They did change their GM,
Yeah.
but I believe Dallas Aikens is still there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think teams like Kings will beat them. If they are rivals, I think Kings still will be better. I think there is much better teams in their division. Last season they actually they were pretty competitive last season, especially in the beginning. People were thinking that they will make playoffs and so on. So this year, I think we're gonna maybe just see the Ducks the way they are. I mean, I don't see they're very good players in that team. That's all. It's a young team. I think they have a long way to go, but a team like Ottawa, I like better, I think.
All right. Ian, what do you think about the additions and subtractions?
Yeah, we've got first team, and Vito and I have a bit of a disagreement here when it comes to the Anaheim Ducks. I actually do think this is going to be a better hockey team next year, and it's just weird though what they've done this year, considering that just last year we're talking about a rebuilding team and a rebuilding franchise, and we're looking at Anaheim as a team that's got this 3-5 year window where they're looking to just build and gradually get better. And then you look at some of the additions in particular, like none of the subtractions to me are backbreakers for the Anaheim Ducks as far as I'm concerned. Like, whoa, this is all of a sudden a player they're really, really going to miss. I think when you look at the additions, they're better additions, bigger additions than any of the subtractions for this hockey team coming into the year. And you have to start with, obviously, Frank Vatrano, Ryan Strome, and, of course, John Klingberg on the blue line. Frank Vatrano, I think very highly of him. I thought he had a pretty solid year last year for the New York Rangers. He was a guy that elevated his play at playoff time. 18 goals, 14 assists. There's nothing wrong with that. 32 points, especially on a team. And he split time, of course, last year with the Panthers and Rangers because he got dealt at the trade deadline. A pretty solid offensive player. He's got a little physicality to him. Willing to take the puck to the front of the net, score from right in front of the goal crease area, take punishment. That's the kind of offensive player, that's going to help a team. And Ryan Strome comes over from that Rangers team as well. And don't be fooled by his lack of playoff production. I mean, people were just saying, man, this guy, what's going on? He's not really contributing a whole lot offensively. He's had a boatload of chances, offensively for the New York Rangers in that postseason run that they had. And, he could have had a fuck ton of goals and points, if you ask me, if the puck just kind of bounces differently for him. So I thought the work ethic was there. He was getting chances. And you know what they always say about the player that's struggling to find the back of the net? I'd rather them be struggling to find the back of the net and then them still getting those scoring chances rather than them pulling the invisible act. The typical Ian Cameron can't find him with a telescope on the ice and not making any sort of impact. Ryan Strome's one of those players that he was getting all the chances in the playoffs, and unfortunately the puck wasn't going in. He's got playoff experience too, and I think he's going to help this Ducks team. He's essentially going to replace Ryan Getzlaf on this team. He's going to fit in nicely, I think, in the second line center spot. It's probably where I see him fitting into this team. They got Isaac Lundestrom now signed for 2 years as well. They think this guy's got the offensive capability to push potentially into the top 6 forward role this year. We know already what kind of talents offensively. Both Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras are. So, I think Ryan Strome will fit them very well as well. And the John Klingberg signing, this to me was a message being sent by the brand new general manager of the Ducks, Pat Verbeek, who of course has taken, remember, Bob Murray was suspended, put on leave because they're doing some investigations regarding his conduct in the past. That's why Pat Verbeek's taken over as the GM. This is a message from Pat Verbeek to me telling, everybody in the division, everybody in the league and his own team that we intend to be a competitive, contending hockey team here in 2022-23. That's, first of all, you don't sign a 30-year-old elite level defenseman like a John Klingberg to a 1-year deal and not expect to be contending for at least a playoff spot this year. I mean, why the hell would you sign him? If you're only bringing him in for 1 year, which is the contract, you're bringing in a guy that's in his prime, that is, I would say still at least a top 10 defenseman in the NHL. Times he's a top 5. He can be that good. You don't sign that guy to a bare minimum 1-year contract unless you think you're going to be pushing to contend for a playoff spot this year, at least, if not get in. So to me, this is an Anaheim team that looks like, even in a division where the LA Kings are getting better with a lot of young upside as well, young talent, a big prospect chain, the Vegas Golden Knights, still question marks coming into the year, but still an improved team. This is a sign that Anaheim's looking to contend for a playoff spot this year. And based on the additions they've made, I think they outweigh anybody they lost. I think they're a better hockey team. It's just going to be a question of, in that tough, rugged Western Conference and especially Pacific Division, is there going to be a ceiling for them that makes it possible for them to make the playoffs? But this is a roster that on paper, to me, is good enough to contend for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I think about the Pacific Division, I think it's going to be really close this year. I think some of the bottom teams really made improvements. I think we're going to have a really close division. We'll move on and look at the prospects, upcoming free agents, and then the cap situation as well. The futures are there. Ian, you said you like them to flirt with a playoff spot there. It's plus 500 to make the playoffs. The odds also to win the division, plus 10,000, plus 15,000 to win the cup, 80.5 points in total. But we'll kind of look at that futures there at the end. Looking at their cap situation, they still have $18,848,000 to spend. So they're still under the cap here. And if you look at the guys that are upcoming free agents, Comtois, RFA, Klingberg, UFA, Troy Terry, Trevor Zegras, Kevin Shattenkirk, Jamie Drysdale, Josh Mahura. They have a lot of guys here and a lot of guys that are a big part of this team that are going to be upcoming free agents. Obviously, Terry Zegras, RFAs. Klingberg, Shattenkirk could definitely leave and go elsewhere. Looking at the prospects, Mason McTavish, he just absolutely killed it in the World Juniors, MVP. He had the most points there, 17 points, plus 13, plus 1, plus and minus, 8 goals and 9 assists in 7 games. He really killed it. If you look at Olin Zellweger, he actually had 11 points in 7 games as a defenseman, their second-round pick from last year. He's also on this list. So the Ducks still have good prospects coming that are not in the lineup. And I think once those guys come in, Lucas Dostal, I'm really high on him. I've took him in some of my fantasy leagues, him and Zellweger. So I definitely think the Ducks do have more good prospects coming to improve the team. And good cap situation still. Ian, we'll go to you this time. What do you kind of think about upcoming free agents, prospects, and their current cap?
This is what makes what Anaheim has done here in this offseason very fascinating, because we think, okay, they're building for the future, build the prospect chain, really look to compete 3 years from now, 4 years from now, not necessarily this year or 2 years from now. And all of a sudden, it's like they slam the brakes and putting on a U-turn and doing something completely different. Because like I said, with the Klingberg deal, the 1-year deal with Strome, and then you look at the situation, which was just up on screen a second ago with the prospects and the cap situation. Here's the issue. You got Klingberg for 1 year. He's probably gone after this year. And Shattenkirk, probably the same thing. His current contract expires. He's an unrestricted free agent after this season. He's probably gone. He's also an older player. Probably unlikely to keep him around. And why is that? Because you've got to sign Maxime Comtois to a long-term deal. One of your core players projected to be for many years to come. You obviously want him back. It goes without saying Troy Terry and Trevor Zegras have to be slam dunk. Highest priority to re-sign them in the offseason. And then you've got Jamie Drysdale and Josh Mahura, two young, improving cornerstone blue liners potentially for this franchise long-term that are coming off their entry-level contracts after this season. So they're going to get a steep pay increase and a big jump in their pay grade after this season. So there you go with the signing of Klingberg in particular. Now, at least they've got Strome. They've got term now on Strome. Strome's locked in for many years. So he's going to be here long term. But for Klingberg, that's the head scratcher about them bringing him in for 1 year. I think it's a great addition to this team, a great veteran puck-moving blue liner like him. But just 1 year tells me they obviously think they're good enough to contend for the playoffs. There's no question. But I think when you look at the free agent situation, Terry and Zegras have to be guys that they're going to re-sign. You've got to believe so. Comtois as well. I think it's going to be lock up the young core. If we lose Shattenkirk, we've got to let him go. If we lose Klingberg, it's a one-and-done kind of year with him, and we have to let him go, so be it. As for the prospects on the left side, we just saw Mason McTavish look phenomenal in the World Junior Championship for Canada. He's already got an NHL-ready shot. He's got great instincts away from the puck. He's a physical player. He's able to go to the front of the net. Like I said, his release keeps getting better. There's a small little concern about his skating speed not being quite where he wants to be, but this is a guy that's a relentless, tireless worker. All right. And he's one of those guys that, people are questioning his skating speed a little bit right now. He's the kind of guy that'll work at it and get better at it, probably, because that's the kind of guy he is. He's a player that cares about how good he is. He cares about how good his team is. He's a team player. You're not a team guy. You're not a team guy, I should say, when you're playing the amount of hockey he played this year. Like, he's playing junior hockey. He's playing for Team Canada at the Olympics. He plays for the Hamilton Bulldogs and wants to do everything in their power to lead them to a Memorial Cup, and, of course, led them to an OHL championship, one win away from the Memorial Cup before losing in the final. Playing the way he did for the World. He didn't have to go play for Canada at the World Juniors this year. It's the middle of August. There's 8 people in the building. I mean, my goodness. I mean, who'd be all that excited to play in the World Juniors with training camp 1 month away? Owen Power didn't sign up to go in the World Junior team this summer, but Mason McTavish did. All right. And that tells you the commitment of this player, tells you how much he cares about winning. It's not just the individual shit. Winning as a team is important to him. And I think he is going to be someone that Anaheim Ducks fans, like I said, I've said it before many times talking about Mason McTavish, get excited, because this guy is going to be a hell of a player for you. Lucas Dostal, keep an eye on him. He got some NHL playing time last year for the Ducks. Just a little bit, got his feet wet, got a few starts under his belt. And we know John Gibson's coming off the worst year by far he's had. And such a proponent of them contending for the playoffs is going to be Gibson improving. And Lucas Dostal is the kind of high-ceiling goaltending prospect right now for the Ducks that might be pushing for more playing time. And they're very, very optimistic about what kind of goaltender he can be at the NHL level long term. Olin Zellweger, from all indications, has the chance to be a top 4 defenseman for the Anaheim Ducks. Their first-round pick from this year's draft, Pavel Mintyukov, the defenseman. He is a guy that's a puck-moving defenseman. You can never have too many of those type of players in the National Hockey League. He's probably going to need a little seasoning in the minors, but he's still a player that I think long-term is going to be the kind of player that every NHL team needs for success. Moving the puck out of their own zone, a great puck mover, because the less time you spend in your own zone, better a hockey team you are. So, the prospect chain is very solid. I don't think they're in the Buffalo, LA, Minnesota stratosphere yet, Columbus, in terms of those teams. I think are some of the best with their prospect pool right now. But the Anaheim Ducks are certainly, I would say, above average with their prospect pool at the moment.
For sure, I agree. And with their last 5 years, which we'll look at here in a bit, they should have some good prospects with how their future or their recent history has been. Vito, what do you think here about the cap situation, upcoming free agents, and prospects?
Well, that looks like a scary team on the paper, when you see and that those all guys gonna still age and become older and become better, there's gonna be a scary team if you just look. I mean, Comtois, Terry, Zegras, McTavish, if those stay there and play, those are already like a core four, which can be very great in the future. So I like the team for the future, But for me, like even the John Klingberg signing, maybe they think about the playoffs, but for anything can happen. For me, I can tell you a few things why I think they will not be competitive, because I think they are a young team. They're missing the veteran presence like Getzlaff, which could actually tell them to not do the turnovers or not to play too individual. Because I can see them getting too fancy maybe this season and trying to play some individual hockey, lose the pucks on the blue line, get many turnovers back. So I would like them to have a strict coach, like someone like the Gallant could be a good choice for those Tortorelas and all these guys. That would be a good coaches, for these young guys, because these young guys, they're still really young, So in that age, I think their head are still not in the right place when the game goes. You need to dump the puck and you need to run after that puck, not to dangle and so on. So if they won't change the coach, and there will be no vets in the team like Getzlav. I mean, Klingberg is a new guy. If he comes now, he will be a D-man. I don't know if he takes straight away like a place in the locker room where he can tell something to the guys. I don't think so. I think that guy will be Gibson, but during the game, Big Gibson will be in the goal. So that also changes a lot. So that's just my take. I would like to see them a better coach. So a better coach could train these young talents better, I think. So that's what my issue with them, I think.
Yeah, I agree with as well. Dallas Eakins, I don't think I could be totally wrong with this, but I don't think he is the coach. If you are trying to make the playoffs, I don't know if he's the right guy to be leading the team, but that's definitely just my opinion. Possible lineup. I have something put up here. Obviously, this I could be very wrong with this. We'll obviously have to see. I'm hearing that Mason McTavish could be put on the wing to start out, so that's definitely a possibility. But I just kind of threw this together. Obviously, goaltending, Gibson, Stolars, Lucas Dostal will obviously try to make the team as well.
He was with the goals last year, most of last year, Dostal, but don't underestimate his potential to break through to this roster this year.
Yeah, for sure. Defense, top six, actually looking pretty good. Fowler, Klingberg, Drysdale, Shattenkirk. The top bottom pair obviously could be Strand and White. It could be some other guys. We'll have to see. Looking at their top six overall, I don't think it's a bad top six. I think the bottom six here, a little bit more to work on. But obviously Anaheim not a powerhouse team. But I do really like their top two lines. Comtois might be in here. Obviously, this is probably not exactly what it's going to look like. But overall, I think they do have a good lineup here. And we'll have to see if any other prospects make the team out of camp. Vito, what do you think about the overall lineup here?
Well, I don't think the Zegers is already a first line center, so I think Strong actually would be better, but maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just a Vito from Latvia, so who I am. But Silverberg, I forgot about that guy. That guy is good. That's actually veteran in the team, right? So he's been there the longest, I think. If you look at and Henrique, obviously, Henrique is a good one. So they have the projected lineup is nice, actually. Well, of course, you have one vet with Zegers and Terry. You have another wet there with Vatrano and Strom. Plus, there's a McTavish and Comtois. Overall, it looks good. Well, I guess Vatrano, Strom, Silverberg more as a grinder lineup. But overall, well, it looks okay on the paper. I mean, you still don't know about the injuries. We are still in COVID actually time. I think we're still gonna be in COVID. I think by the new season. So there's definitely is gonna change. Overall, if this is the best lineup they can have, I would say they're actually in trouble because injuries there will be. So it will be hard for them, but maybe I'm wrong. So Gibson. I agree with Ian. I think Gibson actually could bounce back. Because a goalie like that with his experience and the time he has spent in NHL after a bad season, usually I think goalies play a little bit better the next season. So I think Gibson can. If Gibson plays well, I don't see them making playoffs. So I would just say as it is.
Yeah, I think Gibson will need to have a good year, like a good year for them to make the playoffs.
Yeah, none of this improved roster means shit or a damn if he doesn't play
Yeah.
better. It's simple as that.
Ian, what do you think about the possible lineup here?
So let's talk about Gibson first of all, since we're on that theme right now. So John Gibson wasn't good last year. We know that. I mean, his numbers last year were just way below anything we've come to expect from him in the past. 3.19 goals against average, 904 save percentage. Yet his goals saved above average was 24.79 above average, and he was actually last season still, even with the struggles, still a top 20, top 25 in the goals saved above average category. It could have been a lot worse for him. There were tons of goalies who had much worse statistics, GSAA, than John Gibson. So that tells me, yes, he was bad, but I think part of the story, too, was bad puck luck, bad play in front of him from his defense. Maybe forwards not doing a good enough job coming back, helping out the defense, clearing the front of the net, those kind of little things to help out your goaltender. Too soft in front of the net, maybe no one knocking someone down to avoid them getting a rebound from right in front. So, yeah, Gibson wasn't good, but let's not say it was all his fault. And that GSAA number tells me that maybe he wasn't nearly as bad as it looked on paper with him last year. And he's certainly a goalie that's young enough and capable enough to bounce back. And that's obviously going to be critical. As far as the rest of the lineup, the forward group's deeper. There's no way you can't go into this season and say that Anaheim doesn't have a deeper forward group. They're going to have Henry, Zegras, Terry, Isaac Lundestrom, who just got re-signed, Ryan Strome, and either Jakob Silverberg or Vetrano in your top six, depending on where Dallas Eakins goes, because Vetrano could play second line, could play third line. I think it could be either with that. McTavish, he's probably going to start out in the third line. I don't think they're going to necessarily throw him out, although you say, Terry, there's a chance they might put him in the top six. He might have to earn it. Usually that's what happens sometimes with the younger players, but maybe they feel he's ready for top six duty. But either way, he helps them out significantly. And don't sleep on, Comtois obviously had some injuries, some inconsistency, but he's still a very good offensive player. And don't sleep on Derek Grant, who, look, for most of his career, he's been a third and fourth liner. He's coming off a career season last year with the Anaheim Ducks offensively, which was surprising. 29 points in 71 games, 15 goals, 14 assists. He's going to be playing third or fourth line. That's a guy that even in a bottom six forward role can chip in and contribute a little offense for you. Derek Grant showed that last year for the Ducks. So that was pretty good. That's pretty good to see that if you're a Ducks fan. The defense, Fowler, Klingberg, of course, coming over from the Dallas Stars. Jamie Drysdale, I think, is going to be outstanding. He's probably going to only be better now in year number 2. Josh Mahura's got a young blue liner with a bunch of upside. Kevin Shattenkirk can still, play at his age. I like that he's in a third defensive pair. He can't play big minutes anymore. I think he gets exposed if he's a top, defensive pair player. Or even a top 4 defensive player, which he isn't at this stage of his career, but in a third pairing role where he doesn't have as many minutes, doesn't have as much responsibility. I think that's the best role for him to thrive in right now for Anaheim. And Jimmy Murphy would know a lot, of course, our Ice Guys colleague, about Urho Vakanainen, who they got from Boston, likely going to be in that top 6 group as well on the blue line. He's a guy that's just very steady. He's not going to give you a bunch of offense. He's not necessarily known to be a point producer from the blue line, but he's pretty steady, pretty solid in his own end, little physical component as well. A nice little depth defenseman as well for Anaheim. So I don't know. To me, on paper, I think this is a better lineup and a better team. But again, we're talking about a tough Western Conference, and we're talking about a division with the Flames, the Canucks, who are probably going to be better, the Oilers, the Vegas Golden Knights, a Kings team that made the playoffs last year, because there can only be so many cooks in the kitchen in one particular division. So it's an improved Anaheim team, but not an easy division to play in, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll kind of go here to the last 5 years and kind of give our futures and what we think here. So last 5 years here, First round exit in 2018, 101 points, 80 points in 2018, 19. Obviously, the two short and COVID years. So obviously their points totals will be lower in those ones. 76 points last year. Their point total this year is 80 and a half. So for me, I think Anaheim is going to be a better team this year than their 76 points. I would look at the over. I haven't bet it yet, but if I was going to make a point total bet, it would be on the over 80 and a half. I think this division is going to be really good. I think there's going to be a lot of close races here, and I think the Ducks will definitely flirt with the playoff spot. Plus 500, that's a pretty good price just to make the playoffs. I would consider that. However, to win the division and to win the cup, they're plus 10,000 and plus 15,000 for a reason. And I myself would not be betting that. But to each his own. If crazy things can happen. So that's why there's odds there. For me, it would be over in the point total and to make the playoffs. If I was going to get to something, I think they do flirt with the playoff spot. So plus 500 is pretty good value there. Vito, you've kind of said what you kind of think about this team, but what do you think here? Their last 5 years and their kind of futures for this year.
Yeah, I would agree also with Ian. Maybe Ducks is not that bad, but the division is not easy with their play, where they play. The rest of the teams I think are just better structurally. And yeah, well, talking about 5 years, last 5 years. Well, the last season I think they were a little bit better actually than in those COVID seasons, right? In those COVID seasons, I think they were the last team, and I actually remember. I think it was always play under when Ducks play. I think 2 seasons ago, you always could cash when you play unders on the Ducks games. And anyways, yeah. So last season, I think they had a very good start. I think that was a good one. So that's why they got so much points. Also, like in the end, they were not winning at all. Well, myself, yes, I don't see them being better team this year. I think with staying with the same coach and just bringing in Klingberg, Strome, and Motrano, I don't think it's going to change a lot for them. I don't think they are good players, but I want to see someone else, or at least to change the coach or something. I think teams like Vancouver is better. Vancouver, but we also have there Kings, Vancouver, Oilers, Calgary. I think even Seattle will be more competitive this year. Maybe, who knows? Seattle in the second year, so I think Seattle will be a good rivalry to Ducks. So yeah, I think there's just too many teams which are better than Ducks. Like I already named them, except Seattle. Maybe Seattle are kind of the same, but rest of the teams I think are better. So I would go with under points, and basically that's it.
All right. Ian, what do you think about their last 5 years, and what do you think about their futures for this year?
So if I certainly lean to make the playoffs plus 5. I don't know if I can take it though, even at that price, just because of just how difficult it's going to be in their own division. But I certainly could make a case for over 80.5 points, because I do think this team could hit 81. Look, they were a 76-point team last year. They only need 5 more points to go over 80.5 this year. And I think there's a better hockey team on paper. They're deeper up front. They bring in veteran presence in Vetrano and Strome, playoff players, winning players. They got that winning residue. You know what I mean? Around both of them, Frank Vetrano and Ryan Strome, and Klingberg for that matter. How many years in a row has Dallas at least been in the playoffs? And John Klingberg's been there. Those are guys that can help elevate a team from missing the playoffs to at least trying to get in. The key word is trying to get in, because that's the tricky part. You're a Pacific Division. Look, LA Kings are only getting better. Young team on the incline. I think the problem for Anaheim making the playoffs is everything Calgary did in the offseason, where we're thinking it's falling apart for the Calgary Flames. Kachuk's out. Gaudreau is out. You got to replace 215 points collectively from your lineup from those two guys last season. And sure enough, Brad Treliving, with his pride and his ego wounded, and I think the ego of Calgary is a hockey city wounded as well, decided, oh, no, you don't. We're not going to let them run down this city, that it's no one wants to play here, that we're all of a sudden going to be a rebuilding team next year. And he turns around, gets Jonathan Huberdeau, gets Mackenzie Weegar from the Florida Panthers, big deals there. Signs Nazem Kadri, one of the top free agents available in the offseason. I mean, that was a bad blow to the Anaheim Ducks, seeing Calgary just all of a sudden load up like that. And now here we are. You got to believe Calgary's at least a playoff team again with that lineup going into next year. Edmonton's certainly a playoff team. Kings, we think, are back in the playoffs. And the Vancouver Canucks are going to be much improved in a full season, full training camp for Bruce Boudreau at the helm there in Vancouver. So where does that leave Anaheim? You know, like I say, there's only so many tickets to the dance, if you will, a.k.a. the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's going to be the albatross around the neck of the Anaheim Ducks, even though I think they're a better hockey team. So I would prefer over 80.5 points rather than the make the playoffs wager when it comes to them. I think they're still better than Seattle, although there's another team I think could be a little better this year, Seattle. And San Jose, I mean, I feel bad for San Jose. I feel bad for those longtime Shark fans that remember the Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, Evgeny Nabokov days, getting to the conference final, getting to the Stanley Cup final just a few years ago when DeBoer was there. And then, of course, they lost in the final that year, I believe, to Pittsburgh. Do you feel bad for them because everybody in this division's gotten better and they've pretty much left San Jose behind in the cellar?
Yeah, for sure. That San Jose show will be interesting to try to find something nice to say about the Sharks. But yeah, Seattle, I'm really excited for that show as well. Seattle and Calgary. Calgary definitely put me to work with the spreadsheet because of all the different changes they made. Yeah,
I mean, think of how bad Anaheim was. We thought Anaheim would be last year, rebuilding, just trying to integrate some of these new young faces like Terry and Trevor Zegras, who burst onto the scene and were great. Think of how bad John Gibson was much of that season last year. And think about the fact that even with all of that, they still finished with 76 points. And they only need 5 more points than that to go over their their point total this year. So I think that's doable. It's the playoffs that's going to be the tougher part of that.
Yeah, that's plus 500. So if somebody does like the Ducks, and who knows, could they make some more moves here after we do the show? Today there was a signing. Carolina signed Paul Stastny.
Yeah.
So we have to keep in mind that Anaheim could potentially, they have 18 million in cap space. I don't really foresee them going out and getting anybody else. Like a big name. Hey, there's still guys like Phil Kessel available. No, Phil Kessel
carried away now. In all seriousness, Paul Stastny's a nice fit for Carolina. Veteran guy, good in the dressing room, great leadership component with him. Not the offensive player he was 5 years ago. Clearly not. You know, those days are behind Paul Stastny, but he's a guy that still can chip in, can play both ends of the ice very well, win big faceoffs for you. He's just one of those glue guys, intangibles. You know, he doesn't have the offensive upside he once did, but in a 1-year deal for a team that's all in, I think, to win a Stanley Cup this year, Carolina, it's not a bad deal. Short term, guy that'll help you.
Yeah, I think also they sold the Niederreiter, right? So I think it's a good fit for a Niederreiter spot. And yeah, well, adding about this conference, Ducks, well, I think we can actually pay closer attention to Vancouver Canucks when we're going to talk, because I think that team could have a hot start this season because they were bad last season. You know, I think they lost chance to make the playoffs in the first few months. So I think they're going to come hot out of the gate in this season.
Yeah, when they had Bruce Boudreau, like they looked like a different team pretty much for the rest of the year.
And you know how it's with Bruce Boudreau. I think it's like hot runs and cold runs always with this coach, you know. So it's interesting.
He can get you to the playoffs, but you better hope there's no Game 7. You better hope for Vancouver's sake that there's no Game 7 because
against the Ducks, right?
And against anybody, he was really bad in Game 7s. But great coach, though. I love Bruce, so I wish him all the best. But that is today's show. That is our Anaheim Ducks show. We've kind of gone over the team here, and tomorrow will be the LA Kings show. At the same time, 4 p.m. So make sure to tune into that. If anybody else has any closing words.
I'll just say one thing before we wrap up, Terry. The fact that we got through this team preview video and I think 4 or 5 different topics in 40 minutes with a show with me talking on it is pretty miraculous. So pretty good when you look at it.
Hey, we went in depth and it was good content. So thanks for coming, guys. Follow Ian at Bobano. Follow Vito at Vito Picks. Make sure to give them follows. And if you enjoy the content, smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. for the baseball show, 4 p.m. for the LA Kings show. Best of luck, everybody, today, and we will see you again tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.